Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak to us? Did you get anything, Julie?
I did not.
Need a roll call of agenda, please?
Roll call of attendance is
And-
done.
And approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I wish to amend the agenda, please.
Okay.
I would like to pull the student handbooks off the consent agenda. I guess I do that at the consent agenda, I'm sorry. I'm going to wait. Wrong spot.
Could I make a motion for the agenda? I would like to please remove item 9B, the student cell phone use presentation, and we'll reschedule it for another time.
Okay. Is there a second to the amendment of the agenda?
Second.
All those, any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended. So motion to approve the agenda as amended?
We don't need to, we passed the amendment. Yeah, we just need to vote.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We have a consent agenda, and on the consent agenda, we are accepting donations of $6,100, which we're very, very grateful. The money all goes to the things the students in the classrooms need, and we're very grateful for every dollar that we get. We need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I wish to amend the consent agenda and pull item 16J off the consent agenda, the parent handbooks. I would like to actually table those till a later meeting. We only had 3 days or so to read those. I was not able to get to them. They're quite lengthy. And we'd asked, there was a discussion, okay, I'll just make the motion.
Remove it completely, is your motion.
Yes, please.
Is there a second to that amendment?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to amend the approval of the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So we'll do that. Thank you. We have no presentations tonight. Approval of minutes. We have to approve the minutes for May 10th, 18th, 24, and 24. Regular meeting, special meeting, study session, and special meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
On the May 10th, I noticed they've been updated in the past couple hours, I think. So it's showing updated. What's changed recently since the last upload?
Laura and I communicated a lot.
And Julie wanted a couple of changes on the task force on the
Right.
minutes, so I made those changes. That was the only changes in today. There was one typo, and then there was one thing.
It was, there was one place where it said irrevocable or something, and it was supposed to be, yeah, so.
Okay. I just wanted to know what changed because I read it when it first came out and now they keep being updated, so I can't keep up.
It was just a couple typos. That
Okay,
was interesting.
thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Calendar of events. Winding down. Does anybody want to highlight anything on the calendar of events, page 20? Nobody? All right. We do have a few action items here. Julie's going to talk to us about the approval of the lead and water management plan. And she's also going to stay on the podium to talk about the long-term facilities maintenance plan.
Hi, I'm Julie Osterbauer, Coordinator of Health and Safety, Supervisor of Buildings and Grounds, and I'm asking for approval of the Lead and Water Management Plan and also the Long-Term Facility Maintenance 10-Year Plan.
Can you speak just a little bit to some of the details about it?
The Lead and Water Management Plan, it's something that the state now requires us to have. We actually did it back in 2016, and the transition school was just done in 2017, and all of our numbers were good. All this information can be found on the district website, located under facilities, under routine sampling and testing for all of our testing numbers. So all testing that we do, whether it's lead and water, surface water sampling, can all be found now on the district website.
That's good to know.
Yeah, so we're very compliant.
Is there a motion to approve the lead and water management plan?
So moved.
Any additional discussion?
Thank you, Julie, for your work on this. I appreciate the way you've pulled everything into alignment, even though passages won't be due in 21, 22. You've got them all aligned together. It makes it easier for the board, I think, to manage and keep track of that. So I appreciate that thoughtfulness in doing that. Thank you.
Any additional comment? Oh, Julie, no? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Long-term facilities maintenance plan. Want to speak a little bit about that? We go through it, we know what it is, we've looked at it, but maybe you want to just give a...
Sure. Every year, and the long-term facility maintenance plan is an ever-changing plan. It depends on if we have water intrusion issues, HVAC issues, so it's always changing, and priorities are also always changing on it. This year at the high school, we've got an EFS issue. EFS is the 1996 second-story addition to the high school. It's called Exterior Insulation Finishing System, and it's kind of like a stucco, and it is in the advanced stages of degradation. We had gotten some numbers on it, but we are looking at some other options right now. Instead of removing it, there's no mold, so instead of removing it, we're looking at some options of actually covering it with steel clad. And was at Chanhassen this week to see a job in progress, so we're doing some more investigating on that, because I think we can probably cut that cost in half. So, yeah, and it's absolutely beautiful. If you look at Wildwood, the brown vertical siding, it looks like that, and it will last, 20 years. So, yeah, instead of the full removal, this looks like a much better option. So, doing some investigating on that right now.
Good. You need a motion to approve this long-term facilities 10-year plan?
So moved.
Second. Any additional discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Nicely done.
Thanks, Julie.
Thanks, Julie.
I hope you have a better summer. You'll have a little more time.
We need to approve the long-term facilities maintenance plan, part of the budget for the Metro 916 district as well, and Bill's going to present that.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Superintendent Larson. Very similar to what Mrs. Osterbauer presented on the LTFM plan for the school district during the 2015 legislative special session. The legislature established the LTFM revenue program for school districts. It replaced the old health and safety deferred maintenance programming. It's a great program for districts, and annually, Northeast Metro Intermediate District 916 and all of its members must have an LTFM 10-year capital plan adopted by its school board. Our share of the LTFM portion for 916 is $3,513. So a relatively small amount, and included in your board packet, you just have the 10-year summary, similar to ours as a school district. You'll notice on our 10-year summary, the vast majority of it's in the health and safety area, and the reason for that is 916 has some relatively new buildings, and so far more in the health and safety than deferred maintenance. And then you also have the resolution. So this is an annual approval item, and again, our share is $3,500, so a relatively small line item, especially compared to some of the things we're going to talk about next in the large budget.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
this?
Second.
Any additional discussion on this one? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. The budget.
This line item, as Patrick is pulling it up on the overhead behind you, was discussed at the Finance Committee meeting earlier tonight, and so I will summarize the information for the larger group. Try not to go into exact detail on all 19 pages, but want to take time to provide summary information on this important document that really depicts the priorities of the school board, administration, staff, and the community on the budget side for 2018-19. So what you're going to be looking at here tonight is really a summary of the information that the school board has been looking at since November. As we all know, this has been a very difficult process and a dollar amount for next year. Happy to report that we have a balanced budget projection for 2018-19. The three areas, or the three sections that we will be looking at, and whenever I present the preliminary budget here in future years, I'll break it into three parts: a financial part, a staffing part, and in an enrollment summary. And so that's what you're going to see here in summary form. Certainly there's much more that goes into it than what you see here. And so we'll review as we go on. I'll skip through some of the pages faster than others, but do want to highlight key items as we go along. So you can see district officials. We all know who we are, hopefully. Administrative staff and our building principals as well. I'll skip to our vision, mission, and belief statements. Important to note that our vision as a district is to engage, challenge, and inspire all students to create opportunities for themselves and others. Within our mission statement, that all learners can thrive, or learn, thrive, and succeed in a global society. And then you see our 9 belief statements down below, and why it's critically important that we include our belief statements on a preliminary budget is that all of our enrollment and budgetary recommendations that we will make to the board are vetted through these 9 belief statements. So although this is a financial document, we pride ourselves on helping with student learning and achievement by vetting all of our recommendations through these 9 belief statements. Moving forward to the executive summary and budget overview. I talked about the executive summary quite a bit already. This budget overview really looks at 3 years, okay? So our fiscal year runs from July 1st through June 30th. So our most recently completed fiscal year would be the 2016-17 fiscal year ended June 30, 2017. We are currently in the 17-18 year, which ends June 30, 2018. And we will be asking for approval on the preliminary budget for 2018-19, which ends June 30, 2019. So you're really going to see columns with 3 years shown, a year of actuals, current year budget, and then the next year projected budget. Okay? This includes our assumptions, and we are using education laws that are known as of the date of this document, which includes 2% increase in gen ed state funding for next year. Our budget process is a continual 4-step process, and each step is open for public inspection and comment. We really start the budget process by looking at our property tax levy. The school board certifies the preliminary property tax levy in September each year, and then again in December via the truth and taxation presentation, which really kicks off the budget process for the following year. Stage 2 is the area that we're in now, the preliminary budget that we'll be asking for approval tonight. Stage 3 is the final or revised budget. Preliminary and final or revised do not indicate drafts or final budgets. Just think of it as budget A, budget B, things of that nature. And then finally, we'll finish with an annual financial report and a fiscal audit that's typically presented to the board in November following the end of the fiscal year. So a continuous 4-step process that's up for inspection along the way at each process, at each stage. Our first page here is the 2018-19 preliminary budget, all funds combined. So you can see our funds for the school district. We'll spend a lot of the time in the general fund, as that's by far and away our largest fund. You can see we're broken out into the general fund, the food service fund, community services, our debt service fund, the internal service fund, the OPEB trust fund, other OPEB standing for other post-employment benefits, and then our OPEB debt service fund. So you can see total all funds combined for next year on the far right side, 2018-19 preliminary budget, we are projecting $53,494,000 on the revenue side, and on the expenditure budget, $53,681,000. And in the pages to come, we'll go over breakout of each fund, and furthermore within the general fund, unassigned, assigned, and restricted categories. And we'll start by looking at the fund balance report. It is challenging at best to fit all this onto one page, and so it may be easier to look on your tablet or on your hard copy at your place. But you'll see on the far left-hand side, we started we ended 2016-17 with audited unassigned fund balance at 8.2%, $3.13 million in our unassigned general fund balance. And you can see our assigned categories for building donations, student activities. We have an assigned amount for a subsequent year budget that we are using $500,000 in this year, 17-18, and then we have an assigned amount for severance as well. Underneath that, we have 3 restricted categories. We have a restricted allocation for our capital projects levy, which is our voter-approved capital projects levy or technology levy, which is really the teachers or the tools for the teachers and other things in their classrooms. We have an operating capital allocation that we restrict out, and then our long-term facilities maintenance that Julie talked about earlier. Below that, we have our other governmental funds, and you can see where we started the year at from a fund balance standpoint for the other governmental funds. The 2017-18 revised revenue and revised expenditures, this budget was approved by the board in December of 2017, so you've seen that before. And you see our transfer here from the assigned for subsequent year budget. We're using $500,000 of the $547 available, and we are moving that up to the unassigned fund balance to sort of bridge the gap on the projected budget deficit for this year. So you can see at June 30, 2018, and this is estimated at this point, we are projecting an unassigned fund balance at 6%. And you can see our other categories as well. So relatively unchanged here with the exception of our subsequent year budget. And now the year that we're going to be asking for approval for tonight, the 2018-19 preliminary budget on the revenue side. You can see that we're projecting revenues of $35.894 million for the unassigned general fund revenues and expenditures of $35.97 million. So this is really the area where the administration and school board had lengthy discussions on how to address a projected budget deficit for next year. And you can see that we have largely done that with just a small deficit of $76,000 for next year. Okay? You can see where the assigned categories are and where our restricted balances are for the capital projects levy, operating capital, and long-term facilities maintenance, as well as our other non-governmental funds. Now, I'm not going to go over that on the summary pages because I've included that in some further detail later on in the presentation. This is just a good reference tool from a fund balance report standpoint, which is the bottom line number for what we have. Our next page, we'll look at enrollment. So as we know, enrollment drives budgeting in school districts, and that's really where we start. Our school district is somewhat unique in that we generally enroll approximately 180 to 185 kindergarten students, and we have traditionally graduated between 280 and 300 seniors. So monitoring grade progression ratios, resident move-ins, move-outs, along with open enrollment in order to maintain the enrollment model is an important part of the budgeting process. So you can see that our 4-year history, 2013-14 through 16-17 is shown here. Our estimate for this year, and again, the reason why this 17-18 is an estimate right now, even though the school year is over, our final numbers are not distributed by MDE until well into next fall, and that's typical for, that's the same for all school districts in the state. So we are confident in that number for 17-18, but we won't know that from a final standpoint until well into next fall. And then you can see for next year, we're projecting 3,288 students. So back to the approximate levels of 2015-16 of 3,294, 2015-16 being the last time we had a balanced budget in the general fund unassigned area. So we've made some great strides in that area this year. Looking at the general fund and in further detail, okay? So the general fund, as I explained to the finance committee, is anything that we can't think of a place elsewhere. Day-to-day operations of the district. So think about it under that umbrella. So educational activities, our support programming, administration, operations and maintenance, transportation, all of our capital, which includes our long-term facilities maintenance. So obviously that can vary greatly based on need, okay? We talked about our fund balance policy. We've talked about that at length. I'll skip over where we're at, but if the fund balance falls below that 8%, we'll strive to implement procedures to stabilize the financial position. Now, we have done that, and our fund balance as of June 30, 2019 is projected to be at $2.312 million. Because that is less than 8%, budget items for this budget for 18-19, such as supplies, materials, and memberships, have not been increased for next year. So the next two pages are looking at our revenue and expenditures by cost object, and then expenditures by program dimension. So you can see on the revenue side, for next year, we're projecting $8.455 million in local property taxes, which accounts for approximately 21% of our revenue total in the general fund. State aid, $28.7 million, which is roughly 73% of our total. So certainly local taxes, federal aid, and other revenues are helpful to our bottom line and our large dollar figures, and we're extremely thankful to our community for their support. But where this state aid figure goes, it is a large piece of the pie, and that's where our bottom line is going to go. And so it's important to make sure that that keeps up, or lobby for that to keep up with increasing educational expenditures. On the expenditure side, you can see that salary and benefits add up to about 78% of our total. So school districts are people-intensive organizations. This is going to be similar to just about every district in the state. You're not going to find districts that have between 40 and 50% labor costs. And the remainder of that 20% is fairly fixed. So the hard truth about budget reductions that we've seen through this budget process is when you have 80 cents on the dollar that's in personnel, and you try to keep your budget reductions outside of the classroom, that's fairly difficult. So that's where we're at from the expenditure on the expenditure side. Things like purchase services, that's going to be our transportation contract, some of our other contracted services, supplies and materials in the classroom, our capital expenditures to include long-term facilities maintenance, operating capital, and then some miscellaneous and other expenditures as well. So you can see that in the current year, 17-18, that's where that $500,000 transfer comes from the assigned fund balance. And then finally, general fund expenditures by program. So this is just taking the same expenditures and splitting them up instead of by cost object. We're looking at those by program. And you can see how we compare 16-17 to 17-18 and 18-19. And then our general fund uses by program shown in a pie chart. The important thing here again is that 83.5 cents on the dollar is on student-based expenditures. And so as you look at the top, and the remainder, things like buildings and sites, district level administration and support, and fiscal and other fixed cost program are shown here too. But the vast majority of this, as we look, is going to be in our regular instruction category, which is going to be our elementary and secondary regular instruction, and then also in our special education instruction. Next year up over $7 million. Personnel, at your place there should be an updated sheet, and so our HR department gave me updated sheets for personnel, and I will update that for you, and I apologize for the oversight in your initial packet. Clerical, paras, custodians, and maintenance principals and unaffiliated are all correct. And I would like to give you the updated counts for teachers. The 17-18 count, instead of 213.75, is 219.50, and that updated sheet should be at your place. And then for 18-19, that decreased to 210.8 is the estimate for next year, which is reflective of some of the staffing reductions that we made for next year, or the board approved for next year, and also we had a large amount of retirements for next year as well. So that's a change there. The next handful of slides I'll go through rather quickly are other governmental funds. The school board did review the other governmental funds, things like food service, community ed, debt service, OPEB funds, at the May study session. There have not been any changes to these slides since the May study session, so I will go through those rather quickly. Our lunch prices remain unchanged from 17-18 to 18-19. We do contract with Stillwater for our food service management and staffing. We exercised the second renewal term with Stillwater for next year. That expires after 18-19, so we will want to spend time next year looking at how that is working and if there are any efficiencies there or if we want to maintain with the way things are being done.
Did you say there were price increases for students in 16-17?
Between 16-17 and 17-18. Okay. Yep. The prices that you see here were increased from the prior year. Revenues and expenditures in the food service fund. You can see that next year we're projecting just a slight deficit, and really at this point that's a conservative estimate. We had a deficit. We were in a deficit position last year in 16-17, largely due to our decrease in enrollment from the prior year. I believe our estimate for 17-18 is tracking conservative at this point, and I would just like to see that come in final for 17-18 before revising that in 18-19. Community Education Fund is broken out into 4 main areas, each with its own fund balance. So community education, early childhood family education, school readiness, and adult basic education. The school or the community services fund is balanced for next year. You can see that last year they had a slight surplus. This year they're projected to be balanced. Next year the same way. So this is largely a fee-based program, and it has certainly grown in the last few years. And it's a community services, an area that's providing great benefit for all of our community members. So that's good to see for next year. Looking next at the debt service fund. As we know, our debt service fund is used to record the revenues and expenditures for the voter-approved outstanding bonded indebtedness. In English, what that means is our voter-approved debt. That is the revenue coming in, are the levy dollars for that, and the expenditures going out are the expenditures to pay the principal and interest on our voter-approved debt for things like the Wildwood Elementary School and other debt that we have and have refinanced. OPEB debt service, other post-employment benefits. You can see our fund balance is projected to be fairly flat for next year, and that has not changed from the most recent fiscal year and then the current year as well. Finally, looking at the internal service fund, which is our self-funded health insurance. That's been all over the board. We have some changes coming up the end of the calendar year 2018, and so I do have us in a slight deficit position, much like food service. This will need to be something that I track in 18-19, and this will need to be a focal point in the revised budget at the middle of next fiscal year. And then finally, the OPEB trust fund. Really, it's in a deficit position, but it's expected that this is going to be in a deficit position. Our revenue of $25,000. That's really just the interest earnings on that fund balance, and then the expenditures are the expected payments coming out of the trust for those liabilities. Finally, the entire budget shown as a summary. So again, as I mentioned, the board will be asked to take action on this 2018-19 expenditure and revenue budget and related proposed fund balance for June 30, 2019. Some supplemental information on what categories mean before we get to the final summary, which has the statute 123B.77, which requires us to approve the budget by June 30th. As I mentioned before, the grand total revenues are $53,494,255. Grand total expenditures are $53,681,180, and we recommend approval of the 18-19 preliminary budget.
Do you have a motion to approve this budget?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion?
Can we get an update on where we are with enrollment numbers projected-wise? Because we're using a projected number for the budget, but can we get an update, Dr. Larson, on where we currently stand with open enrollment and moving?
Yes, next week I can get you that in part of the board notes.
Okay,
I
that'd
don't
be
think I can
great.
do it for tomorrow.
Oh, no, gosh, no. Thank you.
Anything else?
Do we have any idea how we stack up against other districts around us on school lunch pricing?
I can find that out. I don't know that. I did where I was, but I haven't looked at that now, but that's a great point. I'll look that up.
Yeah, not super agent, but I guess I'm showing my age because I remember school lunch prices costing a quarter,
Be careful, Kevin.
milk costing a nickel. So both items are now 10 times what they used to be. I guess that just means I'm old.
Does the lunch get subsidized, subsidized from taxes, right? So that's why it's such a low amount to begin with. Is that right?
Yes, so we do receive, based on free and reduced lunch counts, some federal subsidies for lunch. We also receive a small amount in state aid. The majority of it in our district is fee-based.
Anything else? Great presentation, twice.
Yes, thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Mark?
This topic is the approval of a resolution authorizing the execution, of legal documents, the ties dissolution, sale of the ties bill, and the National Joint Powers Alliance and GPA closing. National Joint Powers Agreement will be moving their name to Sourcewell, and so if you see Sourcewell in there, that's the organization that will be purchasing the ties building. The school board needs to act on this before July 1st. And the resolution is that the school board hereby authorizes the district superintendent or another district representative with authority to legally bind the district to execute legal documents within his or her discretion on behalf of the district in its capacity as a member of ties necessary to consummate the closing of the transaction and complete the ties dissolution, subject to and within the scope of each of the following conditions. Condition A, district shall not be obligated to pay an amount in excess of $20 per student to cover its proportionate share of ties current liabilities. B, district shall not be obligated to pay an amount in excess of $3 per student to cover its proportionate share of the cost to maintain and operate the ties building. C, the district shall retain all legal rights to the ties building and its proportionate share as a ties member according to ties bylaw, and no such rights shall be assigned to the National Joint Powers Agreement. And D, the district shall retain all legal rights to receive proportionate share of any proceeds from the sale of the ties building for an amount in excess of the debt owed to U.S. Bank according to the ties bylaws, and the National Joint Powers Association shall have no rights in any such proceeds. The other part of the resolution is also in the packet. The building is up for sale now, and ties, as has been reported at other meetings, is being discontinued, a dissolution of it, and so the recommendation is to approve as presented.
Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Committee reports. AMSD,
I do not have one today.
Maeve?
Well, we did not have our last meeting as there was not enough people who could attend. I really didn't get to give an update on the exact amount from the Maeve Gala, which was held on the 28th. Maybe Kevin could give us an actual, can you do that, Ed?
Sure. The total brought in was $220,000. Now, after that, there were some expenses, so that's not the final number. But the number that I think is really interesting, and I think staff and everyone in the buildings is going to really enjoy the final number for Fund a Need, which again, Fund a Need is a particular objective. It's been teacher grants in the past, but this year it was upgrading the media centers. The media centers in the high school, the middle school, and OHA. And so the final, well, I'm not going to say final number because some more could come in, but the number as of today is $72,505.
That's great.
And just really wanted to extend a thank you to Christy Albers and Abby Moffett for being the gala co-chairs this year, as they do a lot of work. So we'll have our next meeting next Monday. So,
School board?
School Board Association, remember, we have summer seminar on August 6th. I think emails come out from MSBA asking you to register for that. I will be attending. I'm not sure who else. Kevin, you're going to be attending? And Julie? Good. So send your registration information to Laura, and she'll register board members for that day. There is Phase 1 and Phase 2, a combined training the next day, that if you want to go to that because you haven't been or would like a refresher, there's a reduced fee to go a second time, a refresher. In fact, that's the first time I met Marilyn Fosberg, who's been a school board member for a very, very long time, as I met her at Phase 1 training. But she was doing a refresher, and so it is a good opportunity to do that as things change. The other things that have happened, as you know, MSBA is now sending out summaries of the board meetings under my name for me, which is great. So you're getting those. I can edit and add things, but so you're getting those, in a more timely fashion than I'm able to report here. But one important thing is that they did change the award structure that happens at the leadership conference. So we have all-state school board, and there were many, many, many applications for all-state school board, so now there will be 2 different awards, an all-state school board, and then the Rising Stars. And so the Rising Stars Award is really aimed at school board members with fewer years of service. And so that information will be coming out for the nomination process this fall.
Mike and I did, Mike and I did the phase training last year together.
Yeah, no, it was fun. Yep.
For me, the refresher was nice.
And Stacy and I did the same thing when she came on.
Notes from the 916 board notes are in the packet, but I do want to say that, or highlight the fact that the new building will be open. We're starting to take down the old Capitol View, and Cora will be open and ready to go. They'll do tours, I don't remember the date, sometime the end of August for people that want to come in, but that's a big deal. That's a big deal. The other thing I would say is I talked to our new superintendent, Barbara Duffrin, this week, and she commented on having been to the AMSD meeting and what a warm and robust welcome you gave her. So she was...
What'd they say that we're going to do with us, Mark? They're going to kick us out or something?
Just half of us.
Yeah, kick us.
A robust, warm welcome. Any other subcommittee reports that anybody has?
The Finance Committee met before this meeting and went in even more great detail with the budget presentation. And earlier on, the Facilities Committee had met a while ago before the long-term facility maintenance. So the board, those committees have been fully versed on all of the pieces to both the budget and the long-term facility maintenance.
Superintendent report?
Thank you. This has been really just a terrific last week of school. On Monday, the last week of school was OHA. They had their all-school presentation with slideshow and video, and it was the teachers just an absolute joy to behold. But more fun than that, than watching the teachers on the screen, was listening to the students that were sitting in the audience. Their cheers and their clapping and their just enjoyment at seeing the teachers do that was really just terrific. There were a number of preschool graduations also that last week, which is an absolute highlight, and if you get a chance to go to see them, you really have to. The students are standing up there in their caps, and they are as serious as a heart attack, and they are just looking as cute as can possibly be, and it's a nice, really nice ceremony. Was able to attend the high school capstone presentations. These were with Ms. Courtney McCormick and Ms. Anastasia Eldridge, and the work that our students is doing is nothing short of remarkable, and these have been just really, really impressive. So it's quite the bookend from seeing a preschool graduation and then to a capstone project. And then in addition, we had the middle school talent show. And I'm in awe of those students, those 12, 13, 14-year-olds that can stand up in front of their peers and sing or dance or play instruments or whatever it is they're doing. That was just great. The other thing that was actually even as great was the staff end of the year skit that they put on. It featured many people, one of whom was Mr. Jim Anderson coming in on his Harley, and also was acting as the teacher in the Pink Floyd song with Dr. Newbeck then shouting, "Hey teacher, leave those kids alone." The staff broke into a choreographed dance, and it brought the house down. Students absolutely loved it. Shortly after that, I went to the Rube Goldberg machine demonstration at the high school, in which students had spent a great deal of time to try to crush a can and then have it get into the recycled container. The amount of work and effort that the students do by putting together pulleys and levers and weights and dominoes and all that stuff really is interesting to behold, and the excitement that the students have is just really remarkable. And then after that, I left right away to go to another preschool graduation. And then that evening, we had our Passages graduation. The Passages Transitions program, we had 4 of our students that have graduated from that program. And to see what the students are doing now and where they've been has been just a great, great thing. The senior send-off was the following day, Thursday, another great event at the high school in which the seniors are recognized by the other classes for their leadership and for what they've done. And then they leave through a tunnel of teachers applauding their work. And then on Saturday, we had the graduation ceremony, which is always a highlight. So I would say in terms of weeks, the last week of school, with the work that the students had done, with the reactions that they had to what the staff had been doing, was really just a great, great week. And graduation was the highlight as well. So that's it.
I'm tired listening to it. Great week. The next thing on our agenda is to close the meeting. We have a private educational matter to discuss that the meeting has to be closed.
Right, and so, Madam Chair, this is a discussion of private educational data in closed session pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05 subdivision 2A3. Thank you. And in addition, pursuant to the attorney-client privilege in Minnesota Statutes 13D.05 subdivision 3, we will move to close the meeting to receive confidential legal advice from the school board's legal counsel regarding pending litigation involving a student. The name of the student is classified as private educational data. And so before we make that recommendation to make the motion to close the meeting, I do want to emphasize that at the end of the closed meeting, we will reopen the meeting only to adjourn it. So at that point, I'd like to have the motion made to close the meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I think what he means is you don't need to hang around and come back.